Welcome once again to the Pile on the Pylon podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we love football and hate your opinion here. We're proud partners of the Pulse Podcast Network and Statement Games, where you make the statements on the games. Discover the future of fantasy football at statementgames.com. I'm Richard Bradshaw, joined only this week by Skylar Burkhart, as Austin Frizzoco had business to attend to, and Donnie is stuck on his couch trying to feel better. So, Skylar, how you doing, my friend?
Shouldn't I be stuck on the couch feeling better right now?
I'm shocked that you're in as chipper a mood as you are, honestly.
I took a lot of time to kind of process it, especially after the game. And I sat there after everyone went home and just watched Tom Brady and everyone get the Super Bowl trophy, the Lombardi. And I just kind of took it and was like, this is it. This is what the extent of what we came to be, and we fell short of it.
Thankfully, as a Ravens fan, I have not had the opportunity to experience a Super Bowl loss. And, part of that's because we don't get to the Super Bowl. But at the same time, I was able to see my team win. It's an extraordinary feeling. But I can't even imagine how much it would hurt to watch your team lose. So, Skylar, just break it down for us. I know it's going to be hurtful. For the people who haven't gotten to experience it, like a Lions fan, just tell them how terrible losing a Super Bowl is.
No, it's almost an undescribable feeling. You have to really experience it to understand it. Just imagine that you're sitting outside, you just get a brand new puppy, and then a semi-truck just runs it over. I mean, that's about the closest thing you could get to describe this feeling. It's insane. I was angry. I was angry at the play calling and the outcome. I was upset that we gave it all and we couldn't win it. I was happy to witness history and almost depressed a little bit. And I understand why there's those kind of people that just kind of off themselves or whatnot because of this hard tragedy for some people. A lot of sports fans take it too far. If you're one of those people, please go get help. I mean, honestly, that's something you want to get professional help for. But
so you didn't break your TV?
No, thankfully, no.
You didn't beat your wife or your dogs?
I didn't. Right in the fourth quarter, when Brandon Cooks got the interception, I knew it was over. I started telling everyone, I'm like, this is it. I just got to sit here and just start taking it in now before I see the confetti drop. It's time to just take it in.
Yeah, that's terrible, man. Like, deepest condolences, but just so you know, that's where the condolences end, because for the rest of this podcast, I'm probably going to be giving you a hard time.
And I'm going to be right there with you. There's a lot to talk about on this podcast.
Good for you for embracing the loss. You're taking it in stride. I'd probably still be drunk on the couch with whiskey, and I don't drink whiskey. But there is a lot to digest. This podcast is going to be Super Bowl heavy. Before we get into that, we just got some breaking news, though, about Nick Foles. Let's touch on that real quick. The Eagles said that they were going to extend Nick Foles and use their team option and retain him, so that way they would be able to, sign and trade him to a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars. Well, instead, Foles bought out his deal, which was something that people in the media had kind of speculated could happen. So now Nick Foles is a free agent unless the Eagles decide to use the franchise tag on Nick Foles, but that's $25 million, and that team has a lot of high contracts that they have to pay.
Yeah, there's a lot of money that they're giving up to keep Nick Foles. Obviously, they want to do it for trade value and to get compensation out of it. On the other hand, Nick Foles wants to get the most money and be able to be useful elsewhere instead of being this kind of pawn in a game of chess. He wants to get out there and be a part of a starting quarterback for a team. He doesn't really want to be a backup. He's proven he has the talents in the Super Bowl and postseason that he can lead a team somewhere.
It'll be interesting. What's nice about this is he's going to get his pick of where he wants to play. It wouldn't shock me if the Eagles use the franchise tag, but I think they'd be crazy to do that. In the same sense, though, you might be able to get a second-round pick trading Foles, but if he leaves in free agency, obviously he's going to sign big. He's a quarterback, but the best you'll get is a third-round compensatory pick in next year's draft, not even for 2019. You have to wait until 2020, whereas they could get assets this year.
It all really depends what team they're going to trade into is going to determine the value. Some people will get them as high as a mid-second or a high second. Really depends on where teams are drafting quarterbacks this year and where they think they're going to fall. We may not see any action until right at the draft. We're going to see action. And it'd be interesting, like a team like the Jaguars or even the Giants try to take a shot at them for a backup or even a quality starter while they're looking for their next quarterback.
It's definitely going to be something that we're going to have to monitor. So we'll keep you guys posted with that. Until then, let's go ahead and dive into so much Super Bowl talk. But we got to start with that halftime show. What the fuck happened with that?
I was so excited when they started the SpongeBob on the screen. And I was like, here it is. All the rumors came true. It's going to be something different. And Maroon 5 started playing their song. And what was it? It was
Big Daddy walked out.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, that was short-lived. And I'm pretty sure there was booze everywhere.
Yeah, SpongeBob was on screen for 15 seconds at most. And it was so disappointing to all of us SpongeBob fans. We were hoping they would do the tribute for Stephen Hillenburg, I believe. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
Because I'm a terrible SpongeBob fan, apparently, who died of cancer. And we were just really hoping that he would get that tribute, and he didn't. And the biggest thing is they just teased us about it. They said it's going to happen. We're going to do Sweet Victory. We're going to have SpongeBob at the Super Bowl halftime show. And it was so uneventful, and it was just upsetting.
There was people on the internet that went out there and edited the Super Bowl halftime performance and actually fit in the SpongeBob song from their bowl. Mm-hmm. And it would almost look perfect, like it was actually happening live time. Internet's crazy, man. And I almost wish that happened because it looked freaking awesome.
Well, in the meantime, the NHL did it right, and they actually had Sweet Victory play during a intermission between one of their periods for the Dallas Stars.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if it was the first or second period, but there you go. At least the NHL does it right.
Well, it doesn't make me love them anymore, though.
But do you love Adam Levine more for just showing off that bod?
I showed off your bod's no big deal to me. I know a lot of girls enjoyed it. On a side note, I really liked how Adam Levine didn't get into the craziness of Colin Kaepernick. He took a stand and said, I am here as a musician. I'm not a politician.
Yeah, that was a bright side, is there wasn't too much distraction from the game. And, maybe the game could have used a little distraction because it was a 13-3 final, as we all know. Very boring, quote unquote, because if you like a good defensive battle, you would have loved that game. But, majority of NFL fans just want a high-scoring affair, and they just weren't able to provide that, for better or for worse.
What was your initial reaction to the Super Bowl once the matchups were announced? What was your initial reaction to it?
You mean like the Rams and the Patriots?
Yeah.
I thought we were going to have a high-scoring affair.
I thought the same thing. I said all week, 28-24 Rams win. It was going to be a really good game. There's going to be scoring, but it's going to keep it close. I was right on one of them, but the scoring I was definitely not close on.
See, I think I said 38-35. I think that was my final. I had the Rams lose by a field goal. I know that for a fact. But like I said, for football fans who enjoy defense, that was a fun game to watch.
Donnie.
Like Donnie. I had to work the game, so I was able to, at the end of the night, I was able to pull up the CBS Sports app on my phone. So I watched pretty much the entire second half because I was able to take my break for the start of the second half. And I went back, and all I had to do was count all the stales. I work in the bakery department. So I just pulled up CBS on my phone and watched the entire second half. So I got to see the actual touchdown.
Yeah, the actual
only touchdown. It was a good game from what I got to see. So it's depressing that people just can't enjoy that kind of game.
It was great minds on the defensive side of the ball. You had Wade Phillips versus Belichick, and his name escapes me still, the actual defensive coordinator for the Patriots. Flores, right?
Brian Flores, yes.
And they did a great job at setting up the right game plan to stop each other. The only two people that couldn't be stopped was actually a wide receiver on each team. Julian Edelman for the Patriots and Brandon Cooks for the Rams. I mean, there was only one weapon on each team that actually had success. And I touched on this on another podcast. The Rams did the risky. they went and stopped the Patriots running backs from pass catching. And I said that was a risky move, and it paid off.
Yeah, James White was relatively quiet in that game. I mean, considering what James White is doing most of the time throughout the season, what we're accustomed to, it wasn't a James White performance, but Edelman was feasting, and he was granted the Super Bowl MVP, which should officially get him into the Hall of Fame, right, Ben Albrecht?
No, don't you start this on our podcast.
Oh, such a shitty argument.
I think the Super Bowl MVP should have went to, Stephon Gilmore.
Gilmore should have got it. Edelman was my fourth choice because I would have looked at Kyle Van Noy, the linebacker,
played great,
Stephon Gilmore, who deserved it, and Sony Michel, who scored the only touchdown in the game and went over 100 rushing yards.
It wasn't pretty for Sony Michel, but in the end, Stephon Gilmore got the interception and played a great role in that defense.
Forced a fumble. He was the reason that they were able to limit the Rams so much.
Yeah, he was the force on defense, especially with Patrick Chung getting hurt as well.
Yep, man. I think at the end of the day, everyone was just so focused on trying to get Edelman the MVP because, he caught 11 passes. And
it was the only flashy thing you can really remember because you saw it every quarter. And unlike Stephon Gilmore, he kind of gets lost when he's just doing good coverage.
But in a one touchdown game, Edelman didn't score that touchdown.
No.
And yet we gave him the MVP.
Yep.
So I thought that was kind of sad.
Kind of touching over on the Rams side, did they give the blueprint to beating the Patriots going forward? I mean, this is the worst kind of Patriots performance we've seen on offense in a long time.
And it came in the Super Bowl, too.
In the biggest stage where we've never seen a Patriots team score this less of an amount. We had Belichick trying everything, Josh McDaniels, and nothing was working except for what Edelman could accomplish in the zone coverage.
Well, I think what really worked out for them is the defensive players that they were able to pay this offseason showed up pretty well. And more than anything, I'm talking about Marcus Peters, who played out of his mind good football during that game. He wasn't giving up too much. He was playing sticky coverage. It was by far the best performance that Peters gave the Rams all season. And unfortunately, it just went for naught. They weren't able to get the ultimate championship there. And, Ndamukong Suh was able to, take blocks. But once again, he's not getting the sack production you paid him for. He's going to walk in free agency. Dante Fowler was all right, but the Patriots offensive line did a great job to neutralize a very good Rams pass rush, and Aaron Donald was kept pretty quiet by Aaron Donald terms.
Yeah, that was one of the points I hit on right at the end of the game. I was like, what happened to Donald? He still is sackless in this playoffs and now the Super Bowl. And we know from the stat that I said earlier this season, if Donald gets a sack, the Rams haven't lost a game. And here we are with Aaron Donald doesn't have a sack and the Rams lost a game. And they definitely needed his force up the middle to move Tom Brady out of the pocket. And he was standing in that pocket all day. He was not moved from his spot.
Yeah, sorry. Totally distracted. It was such a good performance for the Patriots' interior offensive line. Just across the board, their interior is absolutely fantastic. They've got their two guards, Trey something is what I was trying to look up just now, and Joe Thuney, I believe is how you say it.
And they played great. They were keeping Sue, Donald, and Brockers in check. They weren't allowing pressure to get to Tom Brady, and Brady was able to step in the pocket and make those throws to Edelman. There was a couple times where the Rams got close. At the last second, Tom Brady would just fling it to Edelman for another first down.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where, they were able to completely neutralize a good Rams pass rush like we just touched on. And Brady was just able to do Brady-ish things. He didn't play a great game, but he was able to move the chains somewhat. Again, unfortunately, it was just one of those games where
it was a defensive mastermind game, and
Yep.
Wade Phillips played a mixture of zone and man, where he disguised each zone and each man with the other. And we saw that in the first drive when Tom Brady threw the interception. It was great play design by Wade Phillips.
It truly was. It was for the 100th time. It was a great defensive match, and unfortunately, we just weren't able to appreciate it for what it was while it was playing.
And then for kind of breaking down the Super Bowl, let's get into it a little bit more. The Rams struggled on offense the whole game, as well as the Patriots. We saw the Patriots get way further down the field, and Rams were 0 for 7 on third downs for majority of the game. What do you think was the biggest issue for them on those third downs?
More than anything, it almost felt like the Rams were like starstruck coming onto this field. They were they're such a young team. Their window's open by quite a bit. I would say even after you pay Goff, you just have such a good nucleus of talent there. But the stage seemed a little too big for him. It seemed a little too big for Sean McVay. And first of all, McVay got completely outcoached. I mean, we're used to seeing such great performances out of him. And yes, he played a good defense, but in the same sense, he wasn't able to do Sean McVay things.
No, Sean McVay was outcoached, and he said that himself. And I almost want to say it's his ego that got in the way. I've written an article about this. If you guys want to check it out via downtownrams.com. I also post on my Twitter at Burkhart Skyler. And I pointed out that this could be his ego getting in the way. We saw in each of the Rams' losses this season against the Bears and Philly where the offense wasn't working and he refused to make in-game adjustments to go to the defense's weaknesses. And we saw that again. He ran the 11-man personnel majority of the game, and the Patriots are really good at defending that. But the Rams are actually play better in a 12-man personnel when they can use their tight ends and have extra blockers and able to run the deceptive sweeps and whatnot. And the Patriots exposed that. They came right up the middle like they said they were, like every analysis said they were going to make Goff get out of the pocket and force him to the outside where they were able to chase him down and make him run out of bounds.
Yep. Brian Flores just coached and coordinated a great game for the Patriots defense, and that was pretty much entirely the difference in that game was what Flores was able to do. And obviously now he's the Miami Dolphins head coach. It'll be exciting to see if he can get the most out of some very good defensive players that they have down there.
And it's not like the Patriots have outstanding defensive players. They just have the right pieces in place and they do what they're told. And that's all it was. These players attacked downhill instead of going left to right and extending the field. And they made Goff pay for it.
They did. They completely did. It was, depressing to see, especially as a Rams fan, but hey, defense is defense.
With this win, though, does this make Tom Brady and Belichick the best quarterback and head coach duo, though, in history?
I think they were already at that point, but now there should be no debate about it. Bill Walsh and Joe Montana were able to get a lot of good things done together, but 4 Super Bowls compared to 6 Super Bowls is quite a big difference, and Brady is just by far a superior quarterback to Montana. And we've seen plenty of good quarterback coach combinations, but just Bill Belichick and Tom Brady have separated themselves from the pack in such a way that it's impossible to overlook what they've done. It's like in Anchorman when Vince Vaughn's character, Wes Mantooth, goes to push Ron Burgundy back in the lion pit, and he was like, I pure straight hate you, but damn it, do I respect you. And that's what it entirely is now with the Patriots is, you can hate them all you want, but you have to appreciate the greatness that they have sustained for such a long time.
I saw a video, and I'm not sure if you saw it. They were breaking down film in Bill Belichick's office, him and Tom Brady, about Ed Reed.
Yep.
And how
of course I saw that.
Against Peyton Manning, and how Ed Reed would line up in the wrong coverage just to be able to have Peyton Manning throw it to him, and he would pick it off. And it was incredible seeing they knew what Ed Reed was doing. That's how smart they were, and they could talk about that together and game plan that. And that's how they were able to beat the Ravens. Of course, it was in the playoffs. They lost the Ravens at one time, but they were so smart in how they game planned. That's how they've been able to sustain this legacy they left.
More than anything, that was definitely a huge prop over to Ed Reed and the incredible player that he is, because he's without a doubt the greatest safety of all time. But it's that kind of play that just no other safety can do that. Purposefully line up in the wrong situation and then so quickly correct himself and pick off one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
And now he's in the Hall of Fame for it.
First ballot, as he should have been.
Definitely. With the legacy of Tom Brady and Belichick, there was been talks again about Aaron Rodgers still being the best. And I like talking about this when Austin's not here, just for the reason that you want to be able to talk about it freely without the wall that's there. Be like, no, he's the best. I love and respect Austin, but sometimes it's like, he's not. Congratulations. Aaron Rodgers is talented, but where's the accolades? Where's anything to back it up?
Well, accolades aren't everything. You know, Super Bowls are team sports and team wins compared to, you know, the NBA. You can win a championship with two really good players.
But how smart is Tom Brady compared to Aaron Rodgers?
They're both very intelligent. Rodgers is by far the better athlete.
More riskier.
That's the thing with Brady. They both have a killer instinct, but Brady's mindset is just kill, 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 kill. Brady is just on a different level, in my opinion. And this isn't to shame Aaron Rodgers whatsoever. I just look at Brady and I just see a guy who's in a completely different class than any other quarterback. And it's not even Rodgers. He's better than Breeze by a mile. He's better than Peyton Manning by a mile. He's better than Joe Montana and John Elway and Johnny Unitas by miles and miles and miles. He's better than Aaron Rodgers.
He's probably in the gym right now, probably working on the next year's plan for how he's going to win the Super Bowl again.
That, or he's having sex with Giselle.
He probably already did that. He's probably on to the gym now, or they're doing it in the gym.
Or maybe he's kissing his son on the lips
for the
coach. A little too long. Or their owner. Or really anyone.
I saw those pictures start breaking. I was like, oh, so this is the NFL now. This is how you get greatness. You kiss everyone to greatness.
He just sucks the power out of them. Like a vampire.
But what was there to get from Robert Kraft,
though? Money and Kraft macaroni and cheese, I guess. That's all I got.
I mean, I'm not going to hate against Tom Brady for that. I mean, there's cultures out there where kissing on the lips is perfectly normal, and that's how they work. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, for Americans, a lot of times it's a little bit different, and some people don't know how to take it. So I respect what he does, and if that's what he chooses to do and how he shows affection or appreciation, let him be.
Yeah. I'm still going to make fun of him and judge him a little bit.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
you know, that's the fun part of it. We can do that here.
Good for you. Skyler, where was the offense? Where was the offense the whole game? We're talking about how great the defense was. These are supposed to be two fantastic offenses. Where the hell were they?
This is an Arby's, Richie.
What? An Arby's? Like the shitty fast food chain?
Yeah, we're fast and we're shitty on offense. Same thing, right?
I guess so, yeah. Gives me diarrhea every time. There you go. Nice and family friendly. Do we have that explicit next to our podcast?
Yes, we do.
Do we really? That's
yes,
awesome.
We do. Every time you come on the podcast, I go, was Richie in the episode? Yeah, it's explicit.
It's explicit. Sorry, not sorry.
No, but I don't know where the offense was. We came out the gates looking like crap, let's be honest. We had so many times we could take advantage on third downs. We had third and short. And we could have just thrown it over the middle. We could have ran it up. We could have mixed up our tendencies, and we didn't. Another factor is Jared Goff held the ball way too long, and that allowed for everyone to get after him. The offensive line wasn't playing great either, so Goff had a small window to throw at him before someone got to him, and yet he held on the ball way too long and let plays overdevelop, and there was no one open at that point.
For the 100th time, we've talked about how great of a defensive battle that it was between Flores and Wade Phillips. And, you know, we can appreciate that. But it truly, truly was shocking to see the Rams come out so flat, especially with all the weapons they had all year long. Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, Todd Gurley, CJ Anderson took over in the last month of the season, including the playoffs. Cooper Kupp through the first half of the season was on pace to have 1,000 yards. Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee were fantastic tight ends. Jared Goff was an MVP candidate. Great offensive line all the way around. There were like minimum flaws with that offense, if that much. It was truly one of the greatest offenses that we've seen in the last 10 years. And for them to be completely neutralized, we all know defense wins championships, but even the 2013 Denver Broncos, the greatest offense of all time, when they ran into the Seahawks, were able to do more than this Rams team could. And the Patriots defense doesn't hold a candle to the Legion of Boom.
No. And Jared Goff dropped back 44 times in the Super Bowl, and he was pressured 21 times of that per Football Focus. And that's a percentage of 48. And that's insane. And within that, 4 sacks and 5 hits and 12 hurries. Goff had no time to even process what's going on without a dude in his face.
Belichick and Flores were able to develop some absolutely outstanding blitz packages, and we know that on Stephon Gilmore's interception, they ran cover 0 and just ran right after Goff. Dante Hightower and Kyle Van Noy were disruptive all game long. We all knew that Trey Flowers was going to do some damage. Even Malcolm Brown, on pretty much nose tackle for them, was able to get some stuff going. They just drew up a brilliant game plan to get Goff off of his game. And, I hate the argument of, well, if you pressure this guy, he's going to play bad, because that's any quarterback. If you pressure them, they're going to play bad.
Even with Brady, they came out with those stats before the Super Bowl. If you pressure Brady, he becomes normal. Every quarterback becomes normal.
Exactly. It's not news, but this is exactly what we're talking about. When those stats do come out, is you see such a change in quarterbacking ability. And it's for everyone, but still, for certain guys, it's surprising. It is surprising to see Brady step back. It is surprising to see Goff step back. But yeah, the key to winning championships is defense, and pass rush wins you majority of those battles. Give me a great front seven over an elite secondary any day of the week.
Because you're going to make that quarterback, you're going to make your cornerbacks better. They could be average or terrible cornerbacks, but they have a great front seven that can get after the quarterback and make the quarterback throw an arrogant pass. The safeties and corners are going to feed.
Yeah, it's a fun debate. Would you rather have an elite secondary that buys your pass rush another second or two to get home? Or would you rather have an elite pass rush, which forces the quarterbacks into a bad decision? If you remember a few years ago in 2015, the Carolina Panthers had an outstanding defense. The secondary wasn't anything great. Josh Norman was an all-pro, but everyone next to him really wasn't all that impressive. But at the end of the day, Charles Johnson, Mario Edwards.
Was it Williams?
No, not Mario Williams.
He's been around everywhere. I feel like at some point he got on the Patriots.
This is always embarrassing. They had another pass rusher. I'm going to have to look him up here in a second. He's in his 30s, and he gets like 8, 9, 10 sacks every year. What's his face? Kawan Short had an all-pro season that year. Lutulele ate up blocks. They were just able to get a great pass rush and a great front seven in general, because, you had Shaq Thompson, Luke Kuechly, and Thomas Davis. And it was just brilliant. So at the end of the day, give me a great front four over a great secondary anytime. We definitely saw the advantage of having that with the Patriots, especially when Patrick Chung went down. Stephon Gilmore is elite, but he's made that much better because of what the defense up front is able to do for him.
He can take advantage. He can just sit with the wide receiver.
Mario Addison. It just came to me. Mario Addison is the Panthers pass rusher.
Another question we can ask, what happened to Gurley on this?
That's a great question, because there seemed to be no explanation for where he disappeared to. I don't buy any of the excuses that are being fed to me. I don't think that they had a strong game plan for how to use him properly at the end of the day, and that's just inexcusable.
I think they had a game plan, and I think McVay abandoned it because of how pass happy he gets. And this kind of plays into the ego thing I said earlier. This Todd Gurley is your offense. You need the play action if you're running an 11-man personnel like he was all game. And you can't set that up without a run game. There was a couple plays where Gurley was getting 10 to 5 yards of carry. One of them was taken away by a penalty, but other times he was getting the yardage. Of course, sometimes you're going to get stuffed. It happens with running the ball. No, not every time you're going to get 5 yards, but you can't give up on it. He had 17 touches total. Sony Michel had 18 alone. and he had over 100 yards. I mean, that one extra yard could have got you over the hump. You don't know. You can't give up on that.
It doesn't help that there were times where he would have great plays and his offensive line would commit a
It
whole.
was 11 touches for Gurley and 17 total for the Rams team for the rushing side of it. And
I was
that's
going to say that's a lot of touches for Gurley. That was a lot.
No,
more than
it
I
was-
thought. That makes more sense. I'm shocked he got double digits.
it was very, you could barely remember it because how much they passed. And then they weren't even on the field long because they were 0 for 7 on third downs. And then once we got into the end of the third, they started converting their third downs. But for the whole half, if you're converting those third downs, you're getting into Greg Zuerlein field goal range. This could be a completely different game.
All you got to do is put the ball in your best player's hands, and the Rams just neglected to do that. As great as all the weapons we talked about were, Gurley is so far ahead of them.
And there was no way to stop
elite.
it.
Yep.
And they weren't even using the running backs in the pass game. I think there was maybe 2 to CJ and maybe 1 to Gurley that was attempted. And that was their whole offense. You would run Gurley out to see if it's man or zone. You move other guys around. You would put so much trickery in your offense where the defense is confused. I heard early during the game that the Patriots would come out with 2 different defenses to pick from. The initial one, and then once they got set, they would switch it. I mean, that's just a credit to how good Belichick was and how prepared he was. And the Rams weren't taking advantage of that. They could have been running the no huddle to even take advantage.
Yep. It was just one of those performances that is just totally underwhelming.
I think Gurley was healthy. I think it was mental. I think he couldn't handle the moment, and the Rams knew that, and it showed. And now, as we saw today, when he declined through a PR rep not to talk to the media, there's something going on. It's going to come out sooner or later.
See, I think my theory is that McVay just totally overthought his play calling, and Gurley just is just frustrated with the lack of touches that he had.
As he should be. He should be frustrated. He's arguably the best player on offense, and he's not being utilized to help his team win the game. I would be pissed off too. It's almost like an AB situation you get into. Like one game where he got pissed off he wasn't being used. It's going to get to that point if this keeps up.
Thank God Gurley's not the diva that AB is.
Exactly. Oh man, I hope he doesn't. But let's go to at the helm here with Goff. He struggled a lot in this game, and he looked like he was a deer in the headlights.
Yeah, it's a good thing Austin's not here to rip him.
Yep, I was thinking the same thing because he would just drip right into this. But that's not going to stop us from going into it as well because we have to address how poorly he played. And there was so many throws he left on the field. I mean, if you watch the second half, you saw him go to his first read and he wouldn't even get to his second read. He'd either throw it or start running. He was panicking. He had open guys down the field and just missed them.
Yeah, again, the stage just seemed a little too big for Goff, and he'll be back. He's a 24, maybe a 25-year-old player. He's got more than enough time. He's so young. McVay is so young. That team, the nucleus of that team is so young. They are going to have to start drafting younger replacements for some of their big-name guys. You got to get a left tackle to replace Whitworth eventually. You're going to lose Peters and Talib. Saffold is going to walk probably.
You could lose Sue. You could lose Peters. You're going to lose Talib soon enough, too.
Joyner will be gone. You just got to draft younger, cheaper replacements for them, but you have a window that you'll be able to get back there. It's just a matter of growing pains and adjusting. You wish it didn't happen in the Super Bowl, but this will only make Goff a better quarterback.
The one throw that bugs me is the one that he missed on Cooks in the second half, where Cooks was almost walking to the end zone, and he was just a second or two late, and he could have had him. That would have changed the whole outcome of the game, because that was early, I believe, in the third, late in the third, early in the fourth, and they would have been tied. And then you had the other opportunity in the fourth quarter where that Cooks dropped the one, and that would change the outcome of the game. And that was a beautiful pass by Goff. We saw as the game got to the end, Goff got better, but we need the consistency throughout the whole game.
It's just unfortunate that the quarterback who's so young and so promising was just so flat the whole game.
It really stands out, the phrase we keep hearing, experience matters. This is only going to make him better. I don't think this is going to discourage him. This is going to motivate him. And you best believe Sean McVay's going to go into that film room with him and be like, hey, you need to be aware of what's going on and you need to learn from this because we're only going to get better from here.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll just have to rebound, and they should.
On the defensive side of the ball, I hate saying this, where was Aaron Donald? I mean, he was almost a non-factor in this game in the whole playoffs. I mean, granted, he got pressures and he was disruptive in the run game, but where's the sack master that we're used to seeing that had 20.5 sacks?
Shaq Mason is the most underrated offensive guard in the NFL, and he completely owned that battle all day against Donald. While surprising, it helps that, his center, David Andrews was able to help him too. Because Donald is definitely the guy that you're going to double up on. But Donald was quiet the whole playoff in terms of sacks. He's still getting pressure, but he couldn't finish and get home. And that was the big difference is, he still had an impact in the game, but just not the Aaron Donald standards that he has set for himself.
And it was only like maybe half a second or a second, like until he got to the quarterback and either the quarterback would throw it or the play was dead. He was always there. It just, he couldn't get that last foot to get to the quarterback. And sometimes that's all the difference it is. You can be the greatest player, but if someone can hold you back just 1 second, that's all the difference.
That's entirely what it is. It's a game of inches and it's a game of seconds. And Brady was able to take advantage of that. Regardless of Brady's poor game, he was still able to be the better quarterback that day. And part of it's because the offensive line did such a good job protecting him.
And we can touch a little bit more with missed opportunities in this game as well. Let's start with the Patriots side of the ball. What opportunities did they miss in this game?
Brady just really let them down entirely. Rob Gronkowski and Julian Edelman were able to make plays for them. They weren't able to get anything going with their running backs, and really just the rest of their team. Philip Dorsett is a fine utility guy, but he was completely absent from that game. They just weren't able to establish a consistent rhythm offensively, and Brady just looked bullied the whole game by a very good Rams defense and a borderline Hall of Fame defensive coordinator in Wade Phillips. It was just depressing to watch the great Tom Brady have such a bad game.
Especially on that first drive. As soon as the ball was just about to leave his last finger, he knew he screwed up on that throw. And Tony Romo pointed that out as well. I mean, he knows the mistakes he makes, but that was a missed opportunity right there because you want to start the game off hot.
Yeah, and that was a very good interception by Corey Littleton to his defense.
Dude was playing out of his mind. Missed opportunities on the Rams side of the ball. You just point to the whole offense at this point. There was missed throws. There was wide open players, a lot of third down conversions. That's the biggest to me was your third down conversion.
And pass protection.
Definitely. I mean, both. You can't just say it's just the offensive line. They didn't play great at all. But Goff held the ball way too long to, when they did play great, made them look terrible because they got to him.
Yeah, Goff was one of the biggest catalysts for the issues that they had during this game. Unfortunately, I love Goff, and again, he will get better from this. But until then, he left a bad taste in our mouths.
Did you see the reports that people were saying McVay should have Goff for 2 years once his deal's up, and Cousins' deal's up? They should go get Cousins.
No, because Goff is a far superior quarterback to Cousins.
Matt Miller came out. I saw this. I knew you probably saw it too. He said Goff is already better than Kirk Cousins.
Agreed.
And I thought that was outstanding, just to put that out there. And it made me think, wow, I didn't really think of Goff already being that level. Kirk Cousins, don't get me wrong, has done a lot through his career and the lack of weapons he's had. And Goff's already better. That's a good company to be with already, just at a young age.
Kirk Cousins just can't maximize the talent that's placed around him, and that's incredible because of Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, who both had 100 catches and 1,000 yards, and yet they were still being held back by Cousins, while Goff is able to not only maximize the guys, but he makes some of those guys better.
Would you think if you gave the Rams offensive line to Kirk Cousins, he would perform better, or do you think it's really the lack of talent?
I don't. I think Cousins is, a game manager with a better arm.
So like an Alex Smith with a better arm.
Pretty much is, he'll do just enough, but he's not going to win you games by himself.
He's not as kill hungry as most quarterbacks. I will say that he's more conservative. Maybe if, in the offseason that can be addressed. I mean, the Vikings are a great organization for getting talent, getting the most out of their talent. We saw Adam Thielen develop into a monster. If they have the right quarterback coach, maybe they can instill that in him, because he definitely didn't have it with the Redskins.
Well, they only have 2 more seasons of Kirk Cousins fully guaranteed money, so you better hope that you're able to get something out of him, which at a bare minimum is a playoff appearance.
Or 2. At least 2. I would say you need a playoff appearance in both years to make it a successful run.
Yeah, it was a very, very down season for the Vikings as a whole, and that comes back to Kirk Cousins.
Let's go back to the game, and let's talk about the officiating. We've been talking about this all year, how bad they've been playing, and then in the playoffs, we saw it with the Rams, controversial calls, and we have a couple in this game. Otherwise, officiating, I thought, was pretty good for the most part. What do you think?
It was by far better than some of the calls that we have seen, but the refs are human. At the end of the day, there needs to be accountability. For the billionth time that it has been brought up by everyone, not just us on the Pylon podcast, there's no accountability on the referee's part. And it's so unfortunate because we see so many calls get blown entirely that alter games. And while there wasn't any one defining play that was missed by the referees during Super Bowl 53, there were definitely missed calls that could have helped out either team, for the Rams and the Patriots, but the refs have to do a better job. And at the end of the day, they need to have some kind of way to punish these referees more efficiently when they miss blatant calls.
Definitely. I mean, do they deserve the salary they do if they're making such bad calls and changing the outcomes of games for a lot of people, what a lot of people are saying? I'm not going to lie to you guys. That Saints penalty probably should have been called, but I've seen different angles of it. Every angle looks different, though. And that's the hard thing. Depending where you are as that ref, you're only getting that one angle, and you can't review every flag. This game's going to be hours and hours longer than it should be.
They just need to be able to have some kind of challenge, though, for penalties like that, because it didn't matter the angle.
A flag challenge. You get your 2 challenges per half. And then you get a review challenge, maybe one or 2.5.
Well, first of all, they need to fix the challenge rule entirely because it's just terrible as it is.
No, I think Tomlin was a big advocate of that this year, and definitely Sean Payton at this point, too. Let's dive into it, though. What officiating issues stood out to you? Let's start with the first one.
Really, so like I said, I missed the first half of the game, was able to watch the second half of the game, but it just seemed like they let the defense play football, which is fantastic. I love that. But at the end of the day, there were definitely some opportunities there for the Rams and the Patriots to get some penalty yardage from defensive holdings and just stuff like that entirely, and it just wasn't called, for better or for worse.
Gilmore was caught holding a couple times. Nothing crazy for Patriots fans listening to this and thinking I'm whining. It was nothing crazy. It was maybe 1 or 2 plays I saw that Gilmore was holding, and it didn't get called. The biggest one that I think Gilmore got away with, that's the biggest one to me, was when Brandon Cooks went for that catch in double coverage that got through a beautiful pass. Gilmore had his hand on the arm of Cooks on his left side, was pulling it before the ball got there, thus not letting Cooks get that second arm around the ball to contain it, which would have brought the Rams at either the 3, 2, or 1 yard line. And that was a complete game changer, because that could have meant the Rams scored and we tie it up and we see a different outcome. That was the biggest one for me, and it wasn't called. And again, it's a game of angles.
Pretty much. There's just so much that goes into it, and it needs to be officiated better.
The other one I had was in the first half where Sullivan was called for a holding on a big Todd Gurley run. It was in the first half, and I didn't see it. Tony Romo said himself that he didn't see it either. Just let him play ball. And the guy was already falling, and Sullivan had his hands to his left and kind of let go and then kind of fell on top of him, and they called it a holding. And I was like, that is way too close to be calling that a holding, if anything. You let them play ball. You can't be nitpicking like that.
Yeah, exactly. So unless there's anything else that you need to talk about, I think we covered the Super Bowl pretty damn well.
I think we did. Was there anything else we were missing this week that came out? I feel like we missed something.
Outside of the Zach Taylor and the Brian Flores hire, there hasn't really been too much. I mean, it's only...
AB. Domestic violence. It wasn't not violence, but
yeah, that came out today that he wasn't charged or anything for it, so I wouldn't put too much stock into it. But that's just one more, piece of ammo that we can use to say that AB is definitely got some mental health issues that he needs to get ironed out.
Real quick, do you think this is just more media to get him traded? He's trying to push the talks along by having this kind of negative about it?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think this is just typical of, information gets released so late because people don't get their hands on it too much. And like we just said, this information is brand new because there were no charges pressed. So it's just hard to get your hands on that kind of information.
Definitely. I mean, it's going to be something we're going to talk about for the rest of the offseason until something either does or doesn't happen. And if anything, it's going to happen at the draft night, I think. What we got one last thing, Richie. What is it?
Before we close out, every week we will take 1 minute of our time to go ahead and just rant about whatever the hell we want. And of course, this week, Skylar needed that minute in the worst way. So we'll give you 1 minute and 10 seconds if you want. We'll give you just a little bit more because we all know what you're going to rant about. So.
I've had enough time to process it. I think I'll just need a minute and we'll go from there.
Well, there you go. Are you ready?
I am ready.
3, 2, 1. Here goes the Denny Green minute.
There was a lot to talk about in this Rams game, and the one thing that pissed me off the most watching it was Sean McVay and his ego getting in the way. There was so many times that he could have converted these third downs or changed the play calling. I touched on it earlier with the 11-man personnel. This is just absolute complete bullshit that you're not going to go out of your way to make changes within the game. That is your accountability. We've been exposed every loss that your play adjustments in the middle of the game are non-factor. You don't do them, and that's why we lose. You're taking us to the Super Bowl, and we get freaking shell-shocked by the Patriots when we should have whipped their rear ends into next week. We should have sat there with their tails going home and Tom Brady contemplating retirement because how poorly he played against our defense. It is absolute complete bullshit that Sean McVay keeps on taking blame for this, but how many times is it going to be an excuse? Accountability before it becomes an excuse. You can only do it for so long until it's an excuse. It needs to be changed.
Spot on. I like it. So with that being said, thank you for your minute, Skylar. We're going to go ahead and cut this episode.
Where can they find us, though, Richie?
Well, of course, we're all over the place. We're on iTunes. We're on Spreaker. We're on SoundCloud. The Pile to Pile Podcast. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the PTP Podcast. We have a Facebook page. You can go ahead and like the Pile to Pile Podcast. Email us any questions, concerns, anything like that.
5-star review us. We're getting a lot more reviews right now. Thank you guys for leaving those reviews. We're starting to get those up, and that helps us out. If you guys leave us a 5-star review, we get in the suggestion box when you listen to other podcasts. Like, hey, you should listen to these guys because please, we want to get out there. We want to bring you more coverage. The more popular we get, the more we can bring to you.
Exactly. And, it doesn't hurt when we give you all sorts of controversial conversations. And we all get our fights out of the way, and Richie gives it that motherfucking explicit rating.
Or we make all the Eagles fans come after us.
Exactly. So, from all of us at the Pile on Podcast, partners of the Pulse Podcast Network and Statement Games, you make the statements on the games. Go ahead and discover the future of fantasy football at statementgames.com. This has been the NFL edition of the Pile on Podcast. Coming up next will be the draft edition, or maybe you listen to the draft edition first. Either way, we'll talk to you guys later. I'm Richard Bradshaw.
Skylar Burkhart
signing off.